I have some great HOA stories for you today, and you'll love that title story too. Here's our first one. HOA president just did the dumbest thing imaginable, posted by Insurance Throwaway 123. Backstory: I own a bunch of rentals in a bunch of communities. I'm no stranger to HOAs and legal battles. I have a company attorney on retainer. I just moved into a community and finally bought myself a house that I plan to stay in for a while. A month after closing, construction starts. Permits pulled all legal work during the day, follow all the CCRs, and so on. Karen recently got elected to the board, and in her own words, the war is on. This war started when I requested the following: HOA financial documents, 2 months, and they have not produced. A temporary reasonable accommodation after a major surgery. I was told to go screw myself. Her husband changing his oil in the parking lot. I got it on video on my security cam. And so far, I've received 4 violation notices. Speeding in the parking lot, a political sign, which is the opponent to her political sign in the front yard, a violation of peaceful enjoyment, which is construction noise, and finally harassing the HOA. This one was a cease and desist. Also, destruction of community property for washing my car with a hose. So my attorney goes to work on the upcoming fight. My attorney BCCs me on all emails to the association and the management company. I wish that I was making this up. I mean, Karen is so freaking stupid, she replied all on an email meant for just the property manager. A few snippets. I'm going to keep finding him and make his life heck. He is a nightmare and a punk kid with too much money. We're going to drown him in lawyer's fees and send him the bill until he finally submits to me. This is now personal. I'm on a mission to show that punk kid with his parents' money that I'm the dang president and he will do as I say. My lawyer called me 6 times at 10:30 last night and said, "Holy crap, check your email." 9 a.m., my attorney sent a cease and desist to the entire board and included a copy of the email. Mine and his phone have been blowing up non-stop from the 4 other board members and their attorney trying to just talk. This woman may be the stupidest person on earth. I honestly cannot wait to see the fallout from this. Now, I don't want to sue the association or get paid. I just want the board to make decisions that have good, positive impacts on the community and raise my property value. Suing the board, honestly, does nothing. The insurance company pays or it comes from reserve funds. Nothing happens to them personally because they are indemnified. I have only sued when I really have to. Last year, I won an ADA judgment against another property where I have a disabled tenant. I wound up giving the tenant half and donated a dog park to the community under the condition that the current administration resigns. My attorney is trying to figure out a way to get around her indemnity as a board member and go after her personally. Personally, HOA board members should be required to have licensure through the state, similar to realtors, and a state oversight committee. It's insane. Things need to be resolved in court with enormously expensive lawyers. An update. I'm going to sum this up and give as much detail as I can. I've also been drinking since noon, so this may be a little jumbly and I apologize in advance. My phone, Facebook, LinkedIn, all social presence stopped getting blown up by the other board members after the attorney made it clear to leave me alone. It's becoming harassment. Of course, due to COVID-19, courts are closed. The attorney sent them letters stating what his hourly rate was and they would be receiving a bill if it doesn't stop, and that seemed to work. Last night, my attorney calls and asked if I'd be willing to hop on a Zoom call with the entire board, Karen included, and the association's attorney. My attorney came to my house and we hopped on the call together. Their lawyer started off aggressive, stating that my harassment of the board would not be tolerated and blah blah blah. My guess would be to intimidate us? My attorney shared the screen with the email open and silence. We assumed Karen told the rest of the board what had happened, but apparently she didn't give all the details, just that there was an email exchange and apparently I was being aggressive. My attorney and I aren't quite sure what they were all thinking, but once they all read the email, silence, and Karen immediately hopped off of the Zoom call. The VP asked if we can take a recess and call us right back in a few minutes. 10 minutes later, attorney gets an email with Karen's immediate resignation. We all hop back on the call, less Karen. The other 4 board members could not stop apologizing and kept asking the attorney why they were not informed of the brevity of the situation. He quickly hopped off the call, and we assume he won't be representing the association anymore. The other 4 members said that they would need to confer with counsel moving forward, but they will make this right. For right now, the board told me that I can leave my political signs up, but to just ignore Karen until they can figure out what to do. Unfortunately, in something to do with homestead, your house is protected against litigation, but my attorney did draft a demand letter to Karen personally for damages. Because the courts are closed, we can't serve her until the stay-in-place order is lifted and the courts reopen. But it was made clear that Karen is to have 0 contact with me, my family, my property, and so on. We are not waiting until the remaining board hires new representation next week, and we expect some sort of settlement request. Nothing super exciting, but she was fired immediately. They are also going to start searching for a new property management next week, but I'll update when we hear something. Side note, I was walking my dog this morning and Karen was outside and walked right up to me and started petting my dog like nothing happened. I have 300 cameras in front of my house that caught the entire thing. I asked her 3 times to back away and to stop. I put him back inside. The poor guy only got a 2-minute walk, and we called the police, who made it clear to her that if they have to come out again, she will be going to jail. In short, she isn't indemnified by the HOA and is no longer on the board. This is going to cost her and the HOA major bucks. Now, we did make it clear that we don't want any of the community's money, as it will only hurt the other homeowners. Karen is royally screwed. $50,000 collector cars are eyesores to the HOA, posted by Whip Solo. Okay, so I've been dealing with this for the last 3 months, and it has finally reached its climax. For a little backstory, I own a towing company, and I'm currently renting a home within an HOA that I was not informed of when I signed the lease. My wife and I broke ground on our dream home days before lockdown went into effect last year. We signed a 2-year lease, as we were offered a $250 reduction in rent if we did. The house has a 3-car garage attached to it, as well as parking for an additional 2 cars in the driveway. I keep my tow truck in the driveway or parked out on the street in front of the house, as it is classified as an emergency vehicle by the state, and it's not merely a commercial vehicle. This means it is not against the HOA to have it in the neighborhood. We also own many cars, as all 3 people living in the home are car nuts. Now, we do not keep that all at the home, but we do have a total of 6 cars at the home, plus the tow truck, which means 2 vehicles are always parked on the street. For reference, the cars we keep at home are a 1967 4-door Chevy Impala, a 67 Ford Galaxy, a 93 Mazda RX-7, a Nissan Silva, Subaru, and a BMW. Of these cars, all the imports have wide body kits that cost between $4 and $12 grand. This is important as to the value of the vehicles as well as looks. Look up Rocket Bunny and Liberty Walk to get an idea of what they look like. Okay, now for the story. After living here for just over 9 months, and as the lockdowns were ending, the world opened its weary eyes just to get punched in the face again. The HOA that we had absolutely no idea existed started by ticketing the tow truck, which is parked on the street, stating that it cannot be parked on the street. Okay. I'll put it in the driveway, no problem. I pay the $150 fine to the HOA. And after getting the contract from the landlord and reading it, I figure it's best to just go along with it and not ruffle any feathers. By moving the tow truck into the driveway, I started parking the RX-7 on the streets. Now for the reason I listed the other cars. Now the two classic cars are kept in the garage, as well as the BRZ, as it's my project car, and I'm in the middle of building a very high-end drift car out of it. The other two people in the house drive the BMW and the Nissan every day. The very next day, I return home, and there are tickets on both the RX-7 and the Silva, which are parked on the street by our driveway. Numerous neighbors are also parked on the street, mind you, without tickets from the HOA. I immediately call the butthole in charge of the HOA to ask what the heck is going on. He tells me that our junk is devaluing the neighborhood and cannot be parked on the streets, and cites a rule in the HOA guidelines about vehicles being in disrepair or essentially a junk status needing to be put in a garage. I laughed, full-on gut chuckle. The guy I'm talking to drives an early 2000s Cadillac that may be worth $10,000. Butthole tells me that if the vehicles continue to be parked on the street, he will have them towed. Okay, let's play. I told the butthole that he needs to read his own manual and look at the vehicles he's talking about. Clearly, these cars are not in disarray. 10 days after the initial ticketing, he calls for a tow truck, and this is where I should mention that the reason my tow truck is listed as an emergency vehicle is because my company has the county police contract for their towing, as well as the township. When Small Guy Towing shows up to impound my vehicles, I'm not home. I get a call from Small Guy Towing that he's been sent to impound my cars. Now, we actually know each other from the businesses that we operate, and I often kick him work when we're holding over a 90-minute ETA to not upset customers. Small Guy Towing tells me that he has to tow my cars due to his contract with the HOA, but he doesn't have a truck that can tow these lowered cars without damaging them. Small Guy Towing asked me to come home and remove the bumpers so they'll go on his truck. Well, I told him that wasn't going to happen, and I hate to look for the other guy towing to send overflow work to while we see how the courts feel about the impounding and potential damages to the cars. He wisely decides to not tow the vehicles. Now, this was October of 2020. Since then, Small Guy Towing has called me dozens of times about the butthole calling him repeatedly to tow the vehicles. He tells him that the only company in the area that can tow these vehicles is my company. Finally, on July 5th, the butthole from the HOA calls my company to impound my cars. Okay, no problem. I sent 3 of my guys over in the shop pickup to drive my cars back to the shop where they were parked and kept for the last month. The wife started driving the Impala regularly as it is summer. Friday, we went to small claims court as I sued the HOA for towing cost, $250 per vehicle, as well as storage on each vehicle, $62 per day each, and an additional $3,000 for inconveniences due to not having the cars for daily transportation. Add on an additional $1,500 for lawyer fees too. After roughly 5 minutes, the judge asks for photos from the butthole HOA of the cars. He gives the judge the photos, and then the judge comments on how nice the cars are, and they're clearly not in disarray. I thank the judge and ask him if he can see the Cadillac parked on the streetway in the background of the photo, as well as the other 5 or 6 cars in frame. The judge affirms this and asks the HOA guy about these cars. He states that they are not in violation and even coughs up that the Cadillac is his car. The judge smiles a toothy grin and confesses to being a car guy and estimates that each of the 2 cars that have been impounded are worth $50,000 each, and the HOA guy's Cadillac would clearly be the eyesore of the community. The judge then dismisses the HOA's claims and explicitly tells him that he is not to tow any vehicles out of the neighborhood without police confirmation of their disarray or abandonment. Judge goes further and states that the HOA is in violation of the township ordinance as the streets are not private streets but belong to the township. The judge then grabs what I assume is a calculator and starts punching away. After about a minute and a half of pure silence, the judge looks up and says, Okay, as stated before, HOA guy's claim for the HOA has been dismissed, and as for Whip's solo countersuit, I will rule in favor of the amount of $10,100 and $65.50 in court cost to Butthole's HOA. Butthole HOA guy lost his freaking mind. He went on a rant about communism and how the judge was the problem with this country, and into election conspiracies and every whack job theory you'd hear from people like Alex Jones. The judge warned him twice and finally ordered him in contempt and invited him to have a weekend stay on the county's dime at the local jail. HOA guy will be home tonight as the judge set to release him at 6 p.m. The cars are back in their original spots, and I cannot wait for the hand wave and the grin as HOA guy comes home this evening. Get rid of my lady lair that came with the house? Sorry HOA, you approved the sale by Free Range Feral. When we bought our house, the largest in the hood and the original showcase home for the development, there was a shed in the backyard, my lady lair if you will. The home sale was approved by the HOA and a letter of no violations was issued. All good, right? The home unfortunately came with scads of abandoned property. Within 24 hours of taking possession of our home, the former owners broke back in to remove what was now legally ours, a suitable story for entitled people. I stopped at the security guard shack to inquire about ensuring that the former owner's gate codes were inactivated and to keep an eye out for any attempt at continued entry into the gated hood. The guard assured me that he would handle it, and I went on my way. That evening, the guard came to my home to give me additional info that I might need and offered security cam footage for the police. I thanked him for taking the time to make me feel safe in my new home, but before he left, he said, "Just to warn you, the HOA will go after you for your shed. They want it gone." After a bit more discussion, he informed me that the former owners were not only bat crap crazy, but had gone toe-to-toe with the HOA over the shed. 3 years and lawyers all around the HOA finally said, "Screw it, this is costing us too much money, and their lawyer is better than ours," and they dropped the whole thing. Within 2 weeks, I had 2 different neighbors tell me the HOA would give me problems over the shed. Oh, fun. At the 3-week mark, an inspector from the county showed up to tell me he was investigating an anonymous complaint about code violations, and the shed, visible only if you stood on my property, was in violation with the county as there was no permit for it. I was livid and already considering what avenues I had to keep my shed or win compensation for the loss of property when the code enforcer smiled a devious smile at me, handed me a printout and said, "All you need to do is fill this out, pay $50 to the county, and you will be in code compliance." He then said that Mr. Littleman Syndrome, the anonymous complaint, cannot touch your shed after that. The key here is that 4 years ago, when they were battling the former residents, the county did not permit sheds, and the bylaws say all additional property structures require permits. If there is no permit, the HOA can order the removal and fine the resident until it's gone. 2 years ago, the county started permitting sheds, and the HOA was unaware of the change. I paid my $50 and I got the permit, making my lady lair code compliant and untouchable by the HOA. I also made a new friend in code enforcement, and all is well in my 150 square foot slice of heaven. Towed by the HOA that I don't belong to, with an update, posted by OK Volume 9677. I live in a cul-de-sac that was built in the early 2000s. A new developer bought the land around us and developed it a few years ago and created an HOA. Now they own the street that I live on, making it a private street, and also own the small parking lots that are a part of the road. I got towed for parking a trailer in the parking lot, even though it was the only one of the small lots not marked in the neighborhood. None of my neighbors in the original homes in the cul-de-sac elected to join the HOA, but now we have no overflow parking. I know I likely have a way to get them to pay for the tow since the area was not posted as a tow zone, but I just simply cannot believe this is even possible given our house has been here over 15 years longer than the HOA. More government is never the answer. An update. I called the non-emergency number, and they told me that they will likely not be able to make a police report because it was not stolen, just relocated. I have tried calling the county, and they told me to call the city. After calling the city, they told me that the street is privately owned and to call the county mediation department that basically wants to settle this like a non-biased third party, which I don't think is my best option yet. I have a feeling that I should have been grandfathered in somehow. I don't understand how a road that was seemingly public until 2020-ish can be privately owned with no vote of mine or even a notice. This trailer was also clearly not abandoned, as it was chained to a tree and had a tongue lock on it. Update number 2. I have gotten all of the deeds from the title company and will be digging through them to see if I can find where I have been granted deeded access to the road before the purchase of the road by the HOA. You agree with these comments? Call the police. Sounds like theft to me. Absolutely this, and the police is supposed to be informed when they tow a vehicle anyway. They can't just tow it with no warnings. HOA secrets exposed, tax evasion, fraud, and extortion. How I uncovered it. Find out how by clicking on the video on the screen. You don't want to miss this story, and I will see you there.